Hey everybody, and welcome to the live stream. So we haven't done this in quite some time, and I'm doing it from my little MacBook Air, of all things. I want to make sure that we're streaming here real quick. Yeah, it looks like we're streaming. Cool. So yeah, we're streaming from my small little MacBook Air, and we're going to be hanging out in Cinema 4D today and After Effects. So I've been doing a lot of stuff in Cinema 4D. Like virtually 90% of my work is all done in Cinema 4D, and then I'm actually taking everything out of Cinema into After Effects. And I've literally only been using Cinema for about 3 months, and I'm just trying to grab a hold of it and design as much junk as I possibly can. And if you are checking out my Instagram, which by the way, you should be liking, loving my Instagram, this is what I'm going to be creating today. So this is something I created a few days ago. It's probably one of my favorite things I've done so far. Again, I've only been using Cinema 4D for about three to 4 months, but we've got this really cool glass texture. We've got some screws, some helixes, bolts, and really nice depth of field. So this is all created in Cinema 4D and then exported out into After Effects for final compositing. So I'm really trying to grasp my head around all that stuff. But first, why don't you head on over to my Facebook at facebook.com/avidproductions479. Give me a like there. You can see all the cool stuff that I'm doing, all the live stream stuff, all the Instagram stuff that I'm doing. Also, check out my Instagram at instagram.com/Cherokee_Turner. Make sure to like me there. And if you want really great music tracks, go to amazingmusictracks.com and you can get we have a coupon code tutorial grid 10, which is in the description below. You can check that out, and you get 10% off your first purchase. So that's pretty awesome. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and make sure we're still going live. Awesome. Yes, we are. We got two people. Sandus here. You will re-upload it later? Absolutely, Sandus, I will. Okay, so again, what we're going to be creating is this guy right here. Now, I won't be rendering it out. I have a pre-rendered file that I've actually rendered out in Cinema 4D R9 or R18. So we'll be using a pre-loaded file that I've already created, just because this took about 3 hours to render last time, and I don't want to do that on my laptop and have you guys wait around. So let's go ahead and get started. So here we are in Cinema 4D R18, and we're going to go ahead and just jump into it. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my viewports here. I've got my perspective, top, right, and front. I want to go into my front here. Go to view. What? Where am I? I need to go to edit. Where's my edit? I've already forgotten how to do all this stuff. Oh my gosh. Panel, filter, display, skeleton, cameras, top, bottom. Nope. Nope. Where's my content browser? That's not what I want to do. Wow, I'm already messing up, guys. Window, not content browser, full mode. I want to coordinate. I believe that is it. Wow. Okay, come on. I don't want the camera. I don't want the view. Options. There it is. Configure. I'm going to go into back. Sorry, guys. Go to options, configure, back. It's in a different place. I'm used to Cinema 4D R11 at work, so you can only imagine. This is a very weird jump for me. All right, image. Now I've got on my desktop my springy spring. So I'm just going to bring over in my logo, because that's what essentially we're going to be doing, is basically recreating my logo. I'm going to go into my pen tool here, and I'm going to find linear. So I believe this is going to be the same thing. So go ahead and click a point. Point, 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 point. Now this isn't going to be perfect because again we're doing this over the live stream as well as this is for tutorial purposes. Alright, so I'm not doing a final render on this, but we are going to be working off a rendered track. Okay, so we've got our spline created. We're going to go to our extrude NURBS. We're just going to pull that under our extrude NURBS, and that's going to go ahead and bring us in already to where we've got a pretty nice looking 3D model. Okay, so what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to go to my NURBS selection. I'm going to go to cap. I'm going to go to fillet. And instead of steps 1, I'm going to turn this up to 5 and my radius down to 2. So what that does is we've got just a nice little fall off. That just gives a nice little rounded edge. Okay? So it looks pretty good. I'm also going to do that to the other side. I like it just a little bit rounded. And I actually might turn this in as 2 centimeters and turn that down to 1. Yeah, that looks much better. Cool. And I'm also going to do that to the other side. So cap, fillet cap, 5, 1. Right, that's looking pretty good right there. Alright, I'm going to check and see if we got any comments. Feel free to comment, and I'm going to try to get to it as quickly as I can. Dude, I want to make my logo in 3D. It's possible? Absolutely. Anything's possible, dude. You just got to use your imagination and figure it out. I mean, I didn't know how to do this 3 months ago, and now I'm ripping through making stuff look photorealistic. It's totally possible. You just got to drive and do it. It's kind of like playing a game. You just got to grind it out and figure it out. So under my extrude, I'm going to want to extrude this out just a little bit. So go to object, and I'm just going to extrude this out just a little. About right there, looks pretty good. Cool. Now the fun thing about this is I'm already probably 25% done with the entire initial design. So there's that. I don't want to do that, so command out. Let's see, what do we want to do next? Let's go ahead and make this into an editable polygon, just because I like to do that. As well as I'm going to create it into a singular object. So I'm going to select all my extrusion layers and I'm going to connect and delete them. So now I've got one layer here, which I can select, which I can now select all the different faces if I wanted to. And yeah, so we can totally do that. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to select, well, delete my spline here, take my extrusion, and I want to rotate. So, go ahead and rotate this around. Whoops. Make sure this is on there. I'm not used to R18, I'm used to R11, so please bear with me. Come on. Oh, dude, come on. There we go. Alright, we just rotated it at 9 degrees, so I'm going to create a floor layer. And then we're going to get started making our bolts. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to create a floor, like that. And then I'm going to bring my floor down. I'm going to zoom in here. And I'm going to bring it to, if I do that, that's a little too tall. I'm going to bring it down to 0. So it's going to be just underneath my layer here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start throwing bolts down into the bottom of this thing. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I want to make this my top layer real quick. So I'm going to bring this up to my top, and just for giggles, I'm going to go ahead and render this out and see what this looks like. And here we go. Okay, I'm going to add a light source real quick so we can get some shadow. Photometric data, lens visibility, shadow. Let's do some softness. That way I can see some depth real quick. Alright. That doesn't look good. because it's like right above it. Let's go back over here. Alright, I'm not going to be able to see all the stuff I want to see. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and uncheck this because it really doesn't matter apparently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create another object. So I'm going to go over here to my cube and I'm going to create a cylinder. So you can see that's how much, that's how tall our cylinder is. And instead of using the scale tool, we're going to be using all these tools right here. So I want to make this a bit taller. So I'm going to need this to go all the way to the bottom here. We'll scale that up. Alright, so this is going to be our absolute bottom. Alright, I don't want it to be that tall. So let's pull this down just a little bit more. Come on. Alright, that looks good. And my radius, I don't want it to be that small. Bring this over here. Move this up. Jeez. Alright, I'm going to start making this bolt. So I don't need the bolt to be that thick. Okay, so our bolt is right here. I kind of want it to be a little smaller just because that seems pretty thick for the bolt. I want it to be the end radius to be that big, but not the going through radius. Alright, so that looks pretty good right there. Let's see how much room we have to play with down here. Quite a bit. Alright, yeah, totally gonna work. Alright, so I'm going to bring this up just a little bit because I'm going to start editing the faces. So let's go ahead and look at comments, see what comments we've got. Still same comments. Welcome to the stream, everybody. You got 2 people. Hope you're enjoying it. Okay, let's go ahead and move into our top layer, and we're going to start selecting polygons real quick. Let's go move the segments up for our height. I'm hoping that did it because I don't see that it did anything, and that makes me nervous that it did. If I do this, it will make, yep, it does. Alright, segments, I mean, that should do just fine. There shouldn't be that many rotation segments, or, yeah, okay. I'm going to have to work in R18 a little bit more before I do an actual tutorial. But again, I've only been doing this for like 3 months. So I'm going to go ahead and click Edit. And I'm going to go ahead and start selecting polygons. Okay, good. It did what I wanted it to do. But I couldn't see what it was doing, which sucks. But it's alright. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select the entire round. And now in order for that to happen, I'm going to hit Select, and I'm going to go to Ring Selection. So I want to select this top portion right here, and I also want to go all the way down, and I'll select the bottom portion. So Shift and click. But I'm going to be modeling off the top, so whatever I do at the top is also going to do to the bottom. So I want to make sure that this is filleted out a bit, so I'm going to hit D to extrude. I'm just going to drag that on out. Right there. Boom. Okay, and now that that is done, I'm going to go ahead and select off of that. I'm going to hit Select. I'm going to hit Outline, not Outline Selection, Jesus. Fill Selection. I'm going to hit right here. And I'm going to hit this this top portion right here. Nope, come on. Okay, let's do ring real quick. Ring selection, hit out right there, and get those 2. And then I'm going to go down here to the bottom. And move that up. Whoops. Move that up. Select that. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off my floor here. Whoops. And I want to select the bottom there. Sweet. Okay, so now on this one, I want to make it a little bit more beveled. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to hit M, then S, I believe. But that did not work. M and S. There we go. So that's going to bring up my bevel tool, and I'm just going to pull that. Oh, come on. M, S. No. M, S. What's going on? Come on. Alright. M, S. There we go. Alright. I want to do that, but I also want to preserve the groups. Offset mode. I don't want that tool option. Where's my preserved groups? Well, that's not good. Well, I actually kind of like that. It's kind of cool. Yeah, we'll keep it. We'll keep it just like that. Okay, that looks nice. Let's try to maybe make it a little bit rounder. Round. Yes, I'm gonna do too much. I really need to work more in R18 because I'm so used to 11. So let's make this a little bit more round here. Up our subdivisions, and that's looking pretty good. And then I'm going to do one bar right down the middle here. So let's make sure that's doing the same thing. Yep, looks good. Cool, looks good. Alright, now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to select, ring selection, and I'm just going to select this ring. And shift and click on that ring. I'm going to hit M, and then I'm going to do inner extrusion. So I believe that's going to be I. No, that's magnet. Let's do none of those. Let's do, yeah, it's I. Just without the M function. I, and pull that down to extrude that inner. And then I'm going to hit M and then S again and extrude into the inside. So that extrudes all the way onto the inside, and it gives kind of a cool look. I want to do that just a little less, about right there. So that just gives us a little bit more depth into our screw. You can kind of see it bevels inside, and it's just another little place to give us a little bit more detail on our bolt. Cool. So that's looking good. So now what I want to do is I want to go look at my comments, see if I need to answer anything. Nope, we're looking good. Chat is still up. One person's watching. Hello, person. So we've got our bolt created. So now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and set up all my other bolts. So I see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 basic edges. So I'll create 5 different bolts. So copy and paste those bolts in. Make sure I don't have any polygons selected that don't need to be selected. Move a bolt over. Right there. Make sure that looks alright. That doesn't look... Oh, that's why. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and center this up. Now, my 3D model isn't perfect. That's why, because there's a little bit of a ramp that goes down. There is that. So I got one bolt. So I'm going to go ahead and go copy and paste another bolt down. And let's go down and put that bolt right in the center here. Looks good. Now I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste another bolt and push this right here. Now normally if I were to want to animate something like this, I would actually place the bolts and then I would bool out of my model, so there would be literally holes in my model. But since I'm only using it for imagery, I'm not going to worry about that because it's going to render correctly anyway. Well, at least correct enough for what I'm wanting to do. So we'll do this, and we'll bring this down about right there. Okay, so we've got our bolts set up right through here. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our extrusion layer, and I want to bring this up to the top, maybe to about right there. That's looking pretty good right there. And I'll also go copy and paste and bring this guy down and almost nearly to the bottom. I want to give it just a little bit of room. Okay, so now we've got this look going on. We've got our bolts and we've got our extrusion layers looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my floor again just to kind of see where we're at there. Let's move back out of here. Let's make sure our floor layer is lined up nice and good here. I believe it is, but I can't see it for some odd reason, so I'm going to have to believe that it is lined up perfectly. I believe it should be. I want to believe. I want to believe. Yeah, I don't think it is. Well, maybe it is. Maybe it's not. Yeah, it totally wasn't right. There. Cool. For some reason, I need to have some more Cinema 4D training, especially with R18. I'm used to R11 where all this stuff is just kind of laid out already, and you can see all the layers. Okay, so what our floor layer does and why you chose to use floor instead of plane is it automatically makes this infinite. So that's a plus on there. So I'm going to go ahead and check this back on. Let's take a quick render here. All right, that's looking pretty good. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sky layer. So we're going to go to sky, or click here. We're going to go to sky. And now we're going to start making some shaders. So I'm going to start a new material. I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to go to my color layer. And I'm going to hit texture. And I'm actually going to use a texture from some Video Copilot backlight, which let's use this. Well, I kind of want a light one. Well, let's use this blue and red. We'll see how that looks. Hit OK, and I want to hit no on here because I do not want to pull those layers over. So we'll go ahead and do that, and go ahead and push this onto our sky layer here. And right off the bat, we've got blue and we've got red. So if we wanted to, we could totally render this out using global illumination and get a really kind of nifty look. Let's see here without the light on here. Okay, there's that. And let's go ahead and turn on our GI. Global illumination. There we go. So this is what it looks like with GI. And that's giving us a pretty neat little look. But I want to add my light in here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click that on, and let's go ahead and render this out real quick. There we go. So it's giving us a much more refined look already. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to recreate our textures. So let's check and see if we got some comments. Nope, still no comments, but I still got one person watching. Thank you for watching. Let's see here. What was I doing? All right, one more texture here. So create new material. So what I'm going to be creating is the bolt texture. So double click on this material. I'm going to create the bolt texture with white. Hit OK. Reflectance. And excuse me for using a legacy plugin, but I'm going to do reflection legacy just because it's easy. I'm going to turn the reflectance up to about 15, or the roughness up to 15, and the reflection strength all the way up. So this is going to be pretty non-porous, but it's going to be very, very reflective. And that's it. I want this to be virtually chrome. So I'm going to go ahead and put those onto our cylinder layers, or our bolt layers. Right like this. So now when we render those out, it'll probably take a little bit to render out. Cool, there's our bolt layers. Now again, this isn't going to look exactly like what mine looked like, which is this right here. Reason why is I'm using a completely different look. I'm using the blue and red look. But we're gonna get, we're gonna get close. We're gonna see, try different shaders. But let's go ahead and create our translucent shader here. So we'll go to create, new material. We'll double click on there. I do want the reflectance. Again, I like legacy, zero roughness, reflection strength. We're going to turn that up just a little bit. Specular strength, we're going to turn up just a bit. Let's see here. I do want to go into my spec map. Let's see. Actually, no, I don't. Let's go into transparency and refraction all the way up to 4. And that just brings in the reflection and allows us to see through it, but make it look as if it has depth. So I'm going to hit color, and let's go ahead and add that really nice orange look in there. Right like that. Hit OK. So that's going to create our orange reflecting ball. And let's go ahead and shove that on there. Yeah, let's go ahead and put that on there again. Right there. And we're just going to render this out in the viewport real quick. And see how this fares. Now this is probably going to take a lot longer to render out. Reason why is because we've got an irradiance map going on. So it's literally trying to calculate all the photons that it takes to shoot through all the translucent objects inside of the model. So it will more than likely take just a little bit to get this thing rendered out. So I'm going to give it a minute and see if we can just kind of see what it looks like. But if not, maybe we'll be able to get something. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. This looks great. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and let this render out, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create our shader for our floor, and literally that's kind of it. And then you're kind of messing around with just how it looks, the light directions, the shadows, different render settings, and so forth. But it seems as though we got a pretty nice look. So the next thing I'm probably going to do is I'm going to create my helix, which I kind of did a bad deal here. So I kind of moved forward and copied all of my cylinders. So more than likely I'm going to have to push back a step and and do my helix, because there's springs that are supposed to be up on here. So my bad. I need to do the springs. So let's go ahead and do our springs real quick. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to our spline tool. So our pen spline, we're going to hit circle. Then we're going to go also again to our pen tool, and we're going to create a helix, which is right here. Then we're going to go to our MoGraph tool here, and we're going to do sweep NURBS, and then we're going to go and pull down our sweep, and it's going to be a parent, or the sweep is now going to be a parent of the circle, and the helix is now going to be a child of the circle. Well, kind of like a child. It'll be equally amazing as the circle. So let's go ahead and bring down this radius right here, so we can see kind of what we're doing. So automatically off the bat, we already have our helix looking nice. I'm going to go ahead and turn this around. It would be nice if this would play nice, please. Oh, that's why. Turn our sweep NURBS, move that over 90 degrees. Let's pull this up a little bit. Again, we're kind of working backwards this time. Reason why is because I'm an idiot and I kind of moved forward before I should have. But that's okay, because this is all a learning curve. So let's do that. So next what we're going to do is we're going to go to our helix. We're going to go start radius, and we're going to pull that down. And then we're going to go to end radius, and we're going to pull that down too. So we really want this dude to be wrapped around the bar. So automatically I need to see that my radius of my helix is very large. So I want to pull that down to maybe 5. No. 7 looks good. Let's go to our helix, start radius, and just pull that sucker down. I'm going to move in here. So it looks like we have a start radius of 4 centimeters. I'm going to go to my end radius and do the same thing of 4. Maybe move that up just a smidgen. And then move that up a smidgen 2. Smidgen part 2. Let's go to height and pull this down here. Pull this down. Zoom in. Pull it down. That way we can see it. And then mess with our height. Go down. So I can see where the bottom of this is. Height. Pull this up. So it's not being all janky with our other layer here. Right. Right. I mean, that's good enough. But I'm just going to go ahead and there we go. Alright, so what our spring layer looks like so far is not great. It's still pretty not good. Let's going to shorten this down to 34. Let's do the same thing. Oh man, end radius. Yeah, this needs to go down. Down. About right. 22. Let's do 22 on this one. That looks pretty good, actually. Let's do 24 and 24. Whoops. Almost knocked my laptop off. That would have sucked. 24 and 24. I just want just a little bit of gap. Yeah, there we go. There's just enough gap. Okay, cool. There we go. And let's go to end angle, and let's just turn this up a ton to make this look like a spring, and then we are going to call this good. And then we're going to delete all these layers and copy and paste them again. So that's what we're going to have to do. All right, so our spring is created. I'm going to move this over. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to find this bolt and this spring. So I believe this is our cylinder right here. I'm going to pull this right underneath here. And like an idiot, I'm going to have to delete my cylinder layers. I'm going to copy and paste my cylinder and sweep NURBS. And then we're going to redirect the model. So copy and paste. I'm going to bring these down to the bottom right here. Good. It looks like I'm a little off on my my spring there a little bit. Bring the springy spring. Is that my sweep? A little bit, maybe. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Copy and paste. Pull this over. And push this up right there. Push that right there. Good. Copy and paste. I'm going to move this over and move it down. That was actually a good move. About right there. Cool. And then I'm going to do it one more time. Copy and paste. Move this up. Move this over. Right about there. Cool. Alright, so that's looking good. Cool. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my material for my floor. I'm going to create new material, double click. Floor color, I want this to be fairly bright. I'll just do it white. Not completely white. Let's just give it a little bit of gray. Having just a little bit of gray adds for more color. We're going to go to reflectance. Again, I'm used to the Legacy plugin. Whenever I learn about Beckmans and all the other different types of shaders, I'm going to be using those more and more as I go on. But for now, that's just how it is. Roughness, I want it to be about 30. Reflection strength, I want it to be around the 50-60. Spec, I have a little bit of spec And I think that's going to be good. So I'm going to go ahead and take that, and I'm going to apply that to my bottom layer here. And let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like. And while this goes on, I'm going to look at my comments. Let's see what comments we have. Hey, I got some Facebook people. That's cool. Oh, hey, Daniel. How's it going? Nice to see you're on the stream. 3 people watching. Hey, I like this. If anybody wants to send me a super chat, I am more than happy to to take your super chat. Also, I'm going to be starting some merch here in the next, hopefully, few months to try to get a little bit of money flow so I can start giving away a ton more free stuff because I've got this amazing job that I can afford to do all this cool stuff. It's just getting the time is the only time I can do it is all these really late nights. So yeah, it looks like we're actually going to have a really nice looking 3D model here. And some lighting here. Let's see how this is going to look. It looks like we have a really nice reflecting thing right down through here, which is going to work out really well. And I think we've only been working around 30 minutes, and that's not even taking into account that I took probably 10 minutes in the beginning to BS with you people, which is all right. I like to talk. Talking's fun. I enjoy to talk. But yeah, cool. This is looking good so far. I might want to take some of that white down, but I'm actually kind of enjoying this look. This looks pretty cool. Even though it is white, it is definitely a different look than what I have in the beginning. Completely shiny, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to set up a render and show you how I would render it, and then you can render it if you like. But then we're going to jump into After Effects, and I'm going to work off the pre-render that I already have. So I'm going to go New Material, and this is just going to be a 100% reflecting material. So we're going to type Legacy and Roughness all the way down, and Reflection all the way up. Maybe a little bit, like 7 roughness. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pop this onto our sweeps, which is going to be the parent of our helix and our circle spline, and that's what's going to give us the texture. Cool. All right, that is literally everything to this cool little model that I created the other day. It's really easy. Like, I was very impressed with myself for creating it. It's just a really simple thing. And if you wanted to pour a few of these screws and bolts and things onto the ground, totally do that. It just adds more realism into the scene. Again, this is my end scene. We've got the reflecting layer, we've got the springs and the bolts that are going through here, placed across the ground. Make sure to put those right up close to the layer, the floor layer. I'll probably come back into this and I'll do a render just so you can see that this is the final render. But for this live stream, I'm going to go ahead and open up After Effects, and we're going to get on into it. Hey, there's something I posted to Instagram a little while ago. That's fun. Alright, so what I'm going to do is go to Composition, New Comp. Now, I made all this stuff for Instagram, so I'll call this Insta Spring. And 1080 by 1080. Oh, I was going to show you how I set up my renderers. Alright, do that, hit OK. Let's go back to Cinema 4D real quick. So, you'll go into your settings right here, right there. I already turned on global illumination. You want to make sure your multipass is selected. Separate lights, I always hit all just because I want as much detail as I possibly can. And if I want it, I can have it instead of having to go and re-render every single thing all over again. Under geometry, I do best. I do at least 2x2x4x4. and I usually set up with these physical render. Now, lately, all the renders that you see that are on my Instagram are usually rendered out of Cinema 4D R 11.5, so I don't have a physical renderer, so what you're seeing is the standard renderer, but I still make it look photorealistic, and this is how I do it. So yeah, that's really, really cool. Oh, I didn't set up a camera. Dadgummit. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and set all this stuff up. We'll go to multipass. We're going to want our reflection layer. We're going to want our refraction layer. We're going to want our ambient occlusion, global illumination, and I believe that is all that I do except for depth. And we're also going to want our depth. So we'll go ahead and hit out, and we're going to add the camera real quick. So the reason why I use cameras is because I'm able to export out a depth map, which basically makes this thing look much more realistic than what it actually is. So go up to cameras, used camera, camera. So we're already in our viewport. I'm going to go ahead and set this up right here. And go to my render settings, output. We'll do 1080 by 1080. That's going to give my square here. So you see right here on the edges, that's where we are with our square. So I'm going to go ahead and move that in and center up. Right about there. That's looking good. Now again, you can add bolts and springs and stuff just to give this a little bit more realism. And there's that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our camera settings. So you see our main object is right into the center of our camera. We're going to go up into our camera, and we're going to go to, that's a good question. Yeah, okay, details. It says depth on mine. So we'll go to details. We'll go to depth of field map front blur. And we're going to hit start. And basically that tells our camera where it starts from. So it should be starting right before our thing here. So I'm going to hit end. We're going to end it right here, right in front of our model, because we want it to start there and go all the way forward. This guy should be a little closer to about here. Reason why is because we want to make sure that we have plenty of our background. So if we have some stuff in our background, it's not just going to completely be eliminated by fall off, and it's going to give that natural depth of field blur. And that's really all you're going to add. I'm not going to add a rear map just because it looks a little funny the way it renders out whenever we pop it back into After Effects. So we've got everything set up. 1080 by 1080. All this stuff is how I use it. You're going to want to save all of these to a separate layer. Instead of TIFF, you're going to want to use PNGs, and I always do 16-bit. Under here, again, you're going to want to use PNGs, 16-bit, and save those into a output file. So I'll go ahead and set up mine. New folder, we'll call this Spring Red. Create. Spring Red. And then I'm going to go down here and do Spring, Shring, Spring underscore Red multi. And make sure that's in the right spot. Spring Red. Okay, save. And then you're just going to hit this middle render tab. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and pop into After Effects with my pre-rendered file. But first, I'm going to check and see if we got any comments. Comments? Yes. Oh, hey, we're friends now, so I don't have to give you money. Ha 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 ha. You can make my logo in 3D. Yeah, I can make your logo in 3D if you want. Send me a message request at facebook.com/avidproductions479, and we can talk about it there, buddy. So, we are moving back into After Effects after we set up that file. So, we'll go to Composition, New Comp, 1080 by 1080, Comp 4, and we'll call this Spring to the Future. How about that? Spring to the Future. Okay? Alright, so we'll go here and I will find my desktop, spring, and here are all of my multi-files. Okay, so I want to go ahead and bring in every single one of them, even the spring PNG. So go ahead and move these down. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to use this file is because this is a separate render that I did after I did the initial Instagram post. This was with a physical renderer, so it looks way more realistic. It has ambient occlusion and it has a lot of other stuff that is built into it. So it looks way more realistic. So I'm really happy that I get to do this with everyone here. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect virtually everything. And I'm going to start compositing. So I'm going to take my multi-depth, I'm going to put it underneath my spring PNG. I'm going to open up my PNG for spring, and this is what it looks like so far. It's good. It looks great. It's very matted though, so it's kind of like working with a piece of footage that hasn't been colored yet. And this is going to be my coloring technique, and then I'm going to be adding some effects on top of it. So next I'm going to go look and see what my spec map looks like, and it looks like this didn't render a very good spec map, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. Go and do my refraction map, and all of a sudden we've got some pretty sweet looking refractions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and look at the different layers that I can do and different ways I can blend this. So multiply gives me a really dark look, which I do not want. Let's try overlay. Overlay gives me a really dark look that I do not want. Let's try add. Add looks pretty good. I'm going to do T and move that down. So this additive layer is pretty cool at around 73%. I like that. Let's go ahead and move in. So we're looking at the reflection map. So this is just the reflection map. So I want to go ahead and use the additive layer again. I'm going to hit T. I don't want to do too many additive layers or it's going to blow out a lot of things, which you can see it's kind of starting to do just a little bit, but it's not too noticeable. It's just adding just a little bit of flare in there, but you can see where that spec map might be getting a little hot. So I'm just going to pop that up just a little bit, about 25. Let's check our spec. Let's check and do a screen map on this. Let's see what that does. Just adds a little bit. Let's try add. A little bit more. Let's try color dodge. Classic color dodge. That's looking pretty good. Let's go T. That's looking good right there. Let's go to light shadow. Okay, so this is going to be my multiply layer. As you can see, we've got a lot of different shadows and stuff that are being created by our springs, as well as a big mess of color down here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to normal and hit multiply. Alright, and that's already looking sweet. Let's go ahead and bring this down just a little bit. We don't want it to be too much because we don't want this to just overkill everything that we're doing, because if it does, I mean, that looks good, it's just not the look that I want. Alright, so I want to go ahead and push this just a little bit. 43 looks good. Let's go to diffuse. What do we got? And I'm not going to worry about the diffuse layer. Global illumination. What do we got? It's very light, not going to worry about it. And ambient occlusion, this is going to be a big one. I do want this, so I'm going to go ahead and hit multiply again. Let's see what it looks like turned on and off. On, off, on, off. Now this definitely adds a ton of detail. So I'm going to go ahead T and kind of move this around just a bit. This ambient occlusion. So what ambient occlusion does is it goes into the gaps and crevices of things that are very close together, but not necessarily touching it. It's the stuff that you see whenever there's a shadow in the crevices. And it's not necessarily based off light. It's just based off how the light bounces on stuff. So it's just going to add just a little bit more to this this 3D model. So that's looking good at about 47. Okay, so now that we got that, I'm going to go not deselect, but uncheck all of these layers here. I'm going to shift and select all of them other than my depth, and I'm going to pre-compose. Pre-compose that down. Pre-comp's fine. Hit OK. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my favorite thing, which is my depth of field. Not now. Alright, so my depth of field. So I'm going to hit Control Space. I'm going to select my thing and hit Control Space if you have a Video Copilot thing, or you can do the effects and presets and type in FL depth of field. Now this is something that I purchased from Frizzluft. If you don't have it, you can use the depth of field, the lens depth of field, and it works exactly the same way. It just doesn't give as good of a result. So I'm going to go ahead and add that on here too. Not now. I keep pressing FN instead of Control. So copy that right here. Depth of field. So I'll just do depth of field right there. Nope, that's not it. What is it called? Camera lens blur. There it is. So I'll be using both of these just so you can see what it looks like. But I'll do my depth of field to begin with. Let's check and see if we got anybody. Okay, cool. We've been going for just about an hour. Got 3 people watching. Welcome to the stream. So on depth of field, what we're going to do is I want to do show, normal blur, I'm going to do sharp zone. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create our depth map. So depth layer, none, spring multi-depth. Okay, so we have nothing selected. So we're going to just turn this up. I usually turn mine up to about half. And all of a sudden you see that sharp zone go away. So we're going to get our focal point and we're going to bring this down because this works in inverses. So you see this is where our sharp zone is. So since we created that depth layer, it moves all the way from the back. And since we have that blur added to our scene, we're able to now completely control the focus of our scene based off that depth map. So I want mine to be focused right on the edges right through here. So I'm going to go from sharp zone to normal blur, and boom, we've got some sweet looking depth of field onto our scene. Now the cool thing about this is we can add it to where it's like a 1/8, and we can push this this radius up all the way, and you see everything is just blurred out as if it were in a camera. I mean, it looks so good, and you can add different irises. Oh, I love it. I love this plugin. Like, it is the coup de grace of cool plugins whenever you have 3D stuff, especially whenever it's rendered out. Now, there is a way to do it in Cinema, but I love doing it in After Effects because it's just so much fun. So what that is right here in the iris. You can use the highlight selections, which I like to do, enable, and it just gives that little bit of pop. And a little bit of pop right there. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what it works like in camera lens blur. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Sad. Turn camera lens blur on. So this is with the built-in plugin from After Effects. It still does a great job. It's just not my personal favorite. So we're going to go under blur map, hit none, turn that to spring multi. And yeah, that's fun. Let's do layer placement, blur focal distance. We're going to move our focal distance just a bit. This one's a little bit harder. And let's go and let's do shape. This is kind of cool because you can change the shape, but it just doesn't give as good of a look, I think, personally. So you can do different shapes. You can change the blur radius, but you can see the fall off distance just isn't there. It looks good, but I just don't personally like it as much. 20, that looks pretty good about there. It just looks more realistic through the FL. So here's with FL, and here's with camera lens blur. FL. Camera lens blur. FL camera lens blur. You can see there's some weird diffracting right around the edges of things. And it's just all about the personal preference. I like FL personally, but yeah. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of a curve adjustment, give it a little bit of pop. That right there. A little bit of pop and circumstance. Well, bam. And the last thing, I'm going to go layer, new, solid. Call this grain. I have learned a amazing thing, and it is to add grain to virtually every shot because it smooths out virtually everything. And just a little bit of subtle grain goes an amazing long way. So we'll go to preset. I love the 250D set. It just gives a little bit warmer tone. And I'm going to go to size. I'm going to hit 0.5 and intensity at 1. I'm going to go ahead and go normal to add. And we are finished. We are very, very finished. So this is our scene. It's a little much. Let's do 0.5. 0.5. There we go. That's looking much better. But here is our scene we have created. Now, it's something I created. I will render out the red one that we did after I add some bolts and some screws and things. But yeah, this is our look. This is virtually exactly what we just created. We've got the bolt, we've got our helix spring, we've got our extruded logo, we've got our floor and reflecting, we've got all of our textures working correctly, and as well as we've got our sky map working to create our environment, as well as we've got one light. Mine on here is out to the left. The other one that is in our other composition is up to the top, creating a backlight to where it shines through our translucent layer. So, hey, this was fun. I enjoyed this. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. Also, comment below if you liked it, or if you have any ideas for tutorials, or if you want to see something done. I like to take those into consideration. But I think I'm going to go ahead and get off. I believe it's been about an hour. But yeah, so I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial run. And I will see you all next time. Make sure to like us on Facebook as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks, guys. Bye.